Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Wednesday, September 17th. I'm starting a little later than normal. Very busy day today. I did go through it in a Jersey video that'll post to the channel in 8 days. So either way, we will start at the top of the board talking about the Flames and the reason why I'm wearing a Flames jersey and hat. Backlund is sticking around with the Calgary Flames. This is a Flames team that is in the midst of, whether it's a retool or a rebuild, however you want to look at it, they're in the midst of it, but it definitely does not look like it's ever going to be a full-on rebuild, which is good. Those full teardowns, they're fraught with peril, and it does mean that it's a long time before a team's necessarily competitive and looking for a playoff spot. So Backlund's sticking around with Calgary. 2-year extension, cap hit on this one, $3.25 million. So while there's still all the speculation around Rasmus Andersson, and where he's going to go and what the return might look like for Calgary. This is a good signing by Calgary. With the salary cap going up over the next couple of seasons, that $3.25 million cap hit should not be a problem for the Calgary team. Anthony Stolarz. So we've talked before, recently, within the last week, I know, about his contract status. And that the Leafs want to keep him around. And Stolarz, it sounds like, really wants to stick around too. In fact, he wants an extension done before the season starts. This is great news. This is something that I think every fan base wants to hear from a player is, hey, I want to sign an extension, and I want this done before we start playing the games that matter in October. So that's good news. Let me know your thoughts, Leafs fans, on that. And once again, Stolarz has been one of my favorite goaltenders for years now, dating back to his time in Anaheim. Brad Treliving has had a candid conversation at the end of last season with Morgan Rielly. Wouldn't get into all the details on this, but it sounds like it was one of those, you got to be better. And he says that he's been very impressed with Morgan Rielly, what he's seen of him. Now that we're getting ready for training camp. And so it does sound like maybe that conversation that was had between general manager and player, that the player, in this case Morgan Rielly, took it to heart. So for Toronto fans, that's good news as well. I like Morgan Rielly as a defenseman. When all the speculation was out there after that loss against Florida, that Rielly's got to go, I didn't agree. And to this day, he is still a Toronto Maple Leaf. I get the feeling that part of the conversation was probably along the lines of, if there's a slow start, if I don't see improvement, there's the possibility you end up on the trade block. So good on Morgan Rielly for listening and putting in the work during the offseason. Nathan Walker's going to be sticking around for a while with St. Louis. He signs a 2-year extension. Very team-friendly contract. The cap hit $887,500. So that is a very team-friendly cap hit. As I've mentioned previously with some of these contracts, any contract that's in that $1 million range, you can write off the whole thing when you drop them down to the AHL. So, and I know, before Blues fans say it, I'm not saying he's getting waived. I am saying that if over the next few years Walker's play falls off and they decide, we're going to, have to send him to the minors, the entire contract can get buried. So that's all I'm saying with that. Not that there's any chance of that. Stupid hockey guy saying he's going to get buried in the minors. No, I'm not saying that. Anyways, so that being said, let me know your thoughts on that one. I know that he's a popular St. Louis Blue, and hey, I like the guy as well. He put in the work to get to the NHL. I have nothing but respect for him there. Robbie Fabbri, apparently signing a PTO for the Pittsburgh Penguins. This might be a smart move. Fabbri is a player who has talent, and he should be a 20-goal scorer every season in the NHL. The problem is injuries upon injuries upon injuries have taken their toll with Fabbri. So there's no risk to signing a guy to a tryout. We'll see whether or not Fabbri gets a job with the Penguins, a team that could use another winger anyways. So this might end up being mutually beneficial. Keep Fabbri in the NHL, helping him, and maybe give Pittsburgh another top 9 forward if Fabbri does sign with the team. So we'll see whether or not he gets a job there. GM Kevin Adams revealing some injury news around the Buffalo Sabres. I have not had this on the board in a while. Luukkonen and Tuch are both considered day-to-day. Greenway is week-to-week. So, yeah, Luukkonen may not be out that long. Even though word has it that that's why they signed Georgiev, was because, Luukkonen might miss the start of the season. If he's seen as day-to-day, and we're going to be playing hockey in, 3 weeks? anyways, we'll see how the goaltending situation turns out with Buffalo, but that is fascinating to me. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, Buffalo fans, on that news. And how do you see that goaltending situation shaking out? That is going to be very interesting. Tampa Bay news, Nick Paul is the latest player to get surgery done, and people will ask why he didn't get the surgery earlier in the summer. Apparently, Nick Paul, dealing with an upper body injury, had surgery last Friday. There are players who will have an injury, an nagging injury maybe, and they decide to rest it, give it the offseason, and see if it'll get better on its own, and then when it doesn't, they're forced to have surgery. That could be what happened here. So he had surgery last Friday. It doesn't sound like it's major either, because he's only expected to be out until early November. So about a month of hockey he's going to miss. For Tampa, they should be able to absorb that loss for that period of time. Really good depth with the Tampa Bay Lightning, so I think they'll be fine. Bill Zito talking about Matthew Tkachuk and saying that he should be out until December-ish, and also adds, don't hold me to that. So it sounds like Matthew Tkachuk's going to want to come back as soon as possible. There's been talk about the whole LTIR thing and all of that, of course, around Tkachuk. Now that the LTIR loophole has been largely closed, it does leave Florida in a position where they're going to have to make some sort of trade. Although, also interestingly enough, Nosek is expected to be out for months as well. So, or at the very least, he's out 4 months. So, and I mean FOR, not FOUR, so relax. But it will be interesting to see what Florida does, considering they have a lot of depth up front. But if Nosek can go on to LTIR, gives you a little bit of space. But either way, Florida is still going to have some work to get done, I would think, before the season gets started. As I've mentioned previously as well, though, you can be over the cap and play a game. It just leaves you playing minus probably a defenseman, maybe minus a forward. Maybe they roll with 11 forwards, 6 defensemen. We'll find out, won't we? Oliver Wahlstrom getting a PTO from the San Jose Sharks, a player that years ago I was very gung-ho on. I thought he had a great shot. However, it's never really quite worked out for him at the NHL level. Did not work out with the Islanders. He went to Boston. There was a lot of hype when he went to Boston. Did not live up to that hype. I would think that the PTO with the San Jose Sharks might be that last-ditch effort in order to get a contract and stay in the National Hockey League. San Jose could certainly use a goal scorer. So if Wahlstrom shows some ability to finesse the puck into the back of the net, maybe he gets himself a contract with the San Jose Sharks. So we'll see what happens there. Coach Mike Sullivan this summer went to visit Mika Zibanejad and apparently has been very busy talking to members of the Rangers. I think this is a good move too, because Zibanejad had a really tough season with the Rangers, and there's been all kinds of speculation for how long about whether or not Zibanejad might get traded. So I think going to Sweden and talking with Zibanejad, meeting his family, and talking to him about the direction the team's taking, I think that's great. I think for Sullivan to reach out to these players and make sure he's building these relationships and making these players feel like they're really part of this process, I think it's great. So good move on his behalf, especially with, as I said, Zibanejad already having a pretty tough season. So we'll see how things go for the Rangers. But that is part of the reason people are expecting the Rangers to bounce back. Mike Sullivan's a pretty darn good coach. Speaking of coaches, Coach Bednar in Colorado, making an interesting statement today regarding the Colorado Avalanche. Says that the Avs have the most depth they've had since they won the Stanley Cup in 2022. That's interesting. I'm not going to disagree with him on that. I do wonder about the center depth on some level, but if Brock Nelson can get to that 30-goal mark, or at the very least just show that he can play really well as a second-line center this year, he may be onto something. So a lot of confidence around the National Hockey League. We're going into training camp. Everybody's undefeated. Don't be surprised when most teams are making these kinds of comments, but I thought I'd throw it on the board. So you guys can let me know, do you think the Avalanche have the best depth they've had since 2022 when they last won the Stanley Cup? I think that argument can be made. It can. Alex Ovechkin turned 40 years of age today. We have yet to hear any confirmation about whether or not this might be his final season, which leads me to think maybe it's not. I'm starting to think maybe it's not. I feel like if this was his final season, we'd already have like t-shirts and a jersey patch and news articles everywhere. Of course, they'd have to get past all these articles about Connor McDavid's extension that hasn't happened yet in Edmonton. I will say this right now. I kind of feel bad for Oiler fans right now because it is a constant barrage of McDavid and the fact he's not signed yet, which I don't have on the board, but yeah, it's a constant barrage right now. I'm trying to avoid some of the constant barrage kind of things. And even in one of the articles I was reading on that, it's still half of it's about Quinn Hughes. It's odd, but at any rate, yeah, Ovechkin turning 40. Will this be his final season? Closer we get to the regular season and we don't get confirmation it's his final season, because the NHL would really want to capitalize on it being his final season. And he is the kind of player that definitely deserves like that tour sort of feeling, that his final game in Vancouver, final game in Calgary, final game in LA, that they'd want to have some kind of ceremony or something for him. We'll get that kind of treatment with Crosby as well when he decides that he's going to hang up the skates. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think this will be Ovechkin's final season? I just don't see him going out quietly. I don't see a situation where Ovechkin plays the whole season and then says, yeah, this is basically it. It is the last year of his contract, though. So if he's still not signed an extension by, I would say, trade deadline, then certainly that conversation probably gets a little bit louder about whether or not it's his final season. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. But thank you guys so much for all your support. Feeling pretty exhausted today, to be honest. It's been a busy day. Rough last couple of days. But that being said, I still have other video goodness to post to the channel today. So I'll get to work on that now that this news video is finished. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. That being said, I'm done for now. I will talk to you again soon.